Hi there, I'm Natalie Ndungo, host and producer at CBC Quebec. So for a while now, here at our station, we've been paying close attention to issues being raised around the school system in this province. You might remember back in October when news broke that 11 teachers were suspended from Bedford Elementary School in Côte-des-Neiges, and that's because a report found that they were at the center of creating a toxic environment for their colleagues and their students at the school.
11 teachers have been suspended for allegedly fostering a toxic climate at Montreal's Bedford Elementary School.
On a un groupe d'enseignants qui ont essayé de faire entrer des concepts religieux islamistes dans une école publique au Québec.
The Minister of Education, Bernard Drinville, then announced that 17 other schools were also under investigation for similar concerns and potentially violating the province's secularism law. That report about those investigations is out now, and our newsroom is following up on that story. But we wanted to share some of a conversation that we had back in December with community members from Côte-des-Neiges. The story about Bedford had grown into a bigger one in the media, with politicians pointing to questions around secularism, immigration, and diversity at our schools. So we turned to people that we knew the news cycle hadn't yet heard from. Parents, young people, community workers. They came together to share not only their experiences and thoughts about the state of our schools in Quebec, but to offer some solutions as well. Feel free to jump in, raise your hand and we'll get you a mic. Kia?
Je vais le dire en français, je vais être plus à l'aise. On m'appelle Kia, mais mon nom est Kileka Koulibaly. Je suis présidente du comité de parents des écoles du Centre de service scolaire de Montréal. Je suis aussi une maman. Il y a un bébé de 6 mois là qui fait dodo, mais j'ai 2 garçons de 10 et 12 ans. J'ai été choquée quand j'ai vu les articles qu'on commençait avec l'école Bedford. Pas forcément étonnée. On veut aller gratter le bobo, mais quand il n'y a pas de bobo, on va gratter quand même pour quand même essayer de trouver quelque chose. Ça, c'est une chose qui me désole. L'autre chose qui me désole, c'est qu'on a on a retiré la lumière sur ce qui ne fonctionnait pas pour mettre la lumière sur l'origine de certaines personnes. Je ne suis pas là pour excuser ces 11 enseignants, si ce qui a été noté, qui a été fait par ces personnes-là est vrai. Ceci dit, d'en faire une affaire de « est-ce que la mixité dans les écoles, c'est une bonne idée ?» Un journaliste m'a questionné là-dessus, là. Et puis, ce que j'ai dit, c'est que pour moi, le multiculturalisme, la mixité, c'est une richesse. Okay? On ne devrait pas dire « cet enseignant n'a pas fait son travail correctement, mais là, il est d'origine maghrébine, puis là, il est de religion musulmane. » Non. Là, on sort du contexte complètement.
Hello, everyone. My name is Salam El Moussaoui. So, Salam means peace, I hope you know. And it means hi also. So I wear many hats, but here I am from the Iraqi community in the area Côte-des-Neiges and DG surroundings. So thank you for this space that you are fostering for having this kind of discussion. That's nuanced discussion. Actually, the community is concerned because children are at stake here. And schools should be safe spaces for everyone, and we should not allow prejudice or indoctrination in these spaces. So we believe religion, secularism, we agree with secularism of the state. There's no objection to that, but that doesn't mean that people do not have the right to express their own views or opinions. It doesn't contradict with the secularity of the state or of the schools. Everyone should have the freedom. We are in Montreal, in Canada. Everybody should be able to speak up their minds, wear or dress the way they like. Unfortunately, we have many instances of students who feel they were, as the beloved student here mentioned, they are looked at or distinguished from others because of the way they look, speak, or dress. And that shouldn't happen. This is the nature of the community here. It's a multicultural community. We should have a beautiful mosaic of different backgrounds and cultures living together peacefully and in a positive integration way. I agree there is an issue. and the community is very clear about that. There is an administrative issue that the school administration and the school board should tackle. It's their responsibility, and there is a failure here in tackling this issue at administrative level.
I did see a hand go up over here. Alex, Adrien, right across. If there's a mic close by that we can get to Alex. There should be a mic on that side.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Alex Adrien, and I wear actually 4 hats as a parent. My kids are no longer in school. They've graduated from university, but as a teacher in a French system, actually from a school not too far from Côte-des-Neiges, where most of the students attending the school came from Côte-des-Neiges, Parkex, and Ville-Saint-Laurent, and also as an administrator, who, when we talk about toxic environment, I am not surprised at all. It's been happening. Unfortunately, it's not only systemic, endemic. At any time, you will have a group of teachers that may be toxic to the school, and I can speak as an administrator. Sometimes it's not easy to deal with it because teachers are unionized. Not to attack the unions, because I think unions do have a place. They do work towards improving a condition for teachers, and I applaud the work that they do. Unfortunately, sometimes I feel that they can be part of the problem when a toxic group of teachers may take over and even ask that the administration be changed. If I'm not mistaken, there's 4,000 teachers missing in the schools.
Yeah.
As an administrator, I am compelled to have a body in front of a classroom. And sometimes that body may not be the best person. I retired in 2019, and I've experienced it when I first joined, particularly in 1987, and it's been going on. Both, I was a teacher in the French system, and I became an administrator in the English system. So to try to paint it as cultural, or that there is a cultural element or ethnic element to it, it's really not to deal with the problem as many of our kids are facing in the schools today.
Thank you. As a former youth worker myself, I am going to make the younger folks in the room a little bit uncomfortable. I know we have some young people in the room who are from Côte-des-Neiges, who've gone to school in Côte-des-Neiges. Gans, I'm looking directly at you.
Hi, everyone. How are you guys doing? My name is Jeffrey Gonzalez, but I go by the name of Gans. I'm the co-owner of La Section Barbershops in Montreal. We have multiple locations. But I started a charity event with Carl, with Charlotte Kent, called For the Hood, where we give free haircuts and school supplies to youth right before the school year. And I also have a barber program in my barbershops where I take youth as an apprentice program. Because me being from Côte-des-Neiges and me growing up in this neighborhood, it is definitely something that I feel like being from a different ethnic background, or you feel some pressure from teachers. You feel that sometimes they are judging you without you having a reason why to even judge you. You feel like sometimes that you're doing something wrong, but you don't even know why. So I feel like that's something that I grew up with going to school. So that's also a big reason why I created that barber program, that apprentice program, to really have an after-school program for myself, for the young youth to come to my barbershop.
Did anybody else from La Section wanted to weigh in? Anything you'd like to say?
Hi guys, my name is Daniel. I'm Daniel. I'm a barber. I'm also a student, and I feel like schools that has those type of problems, tries to bring us down in a type of way that affects our confidence in ourselves. That's why most youth people go out on the streets and do whatever. They don't care about their family, don't care about nothing, just about whatever they're doing. We don't know what's going on because we're still growing up. Most of us are scared. We understand that there's different things in life, but we need teachers, parents to guide us towards what we have to do.
Bonjour, hello. My name is Jean-Edouard, a.k.a. Dark Sanguine. I'm an outreach worker / artist / community advocate / daddy of 5 / somebody that grew up in Côte-des-Neiges in the school system, which was hard for him. I went to Bedford. I went through some traumatic experiences with teachers. I got put on my knees to do a copy in the back of the class while class was running, and I couldn't go to the outing because my class, I was excited. I was hyperactive. They put me on Ritalin when I was young.
Ritalin?
I was diagnosed, didn't help me more, let's be honest. because the structure wasn't able to actually fulfill the emotional knowledge that was supposed to be given to me at that time, you know. So I could say that there's years that I probably spent half of the year outside. So class is still going on. I'm still hearing when the teachers are coming and talking to my parents saying that he's not, the notes are, he's passing, he's just passing. So imagine if I had access to all that knowledge.
I'm in Sec 5 right now, my 5th grade of high school. I always had difficulties reading and writing French and English, you know? And especially my mom and my dad. My mom, she does not speak French at all. Even English speaks a bit, you know? And my dad, he speaks a bit of both, you know? But it's hard for us, our family, you know? Like most of my childhood, I was alone. You know, my older sister, I was mostly alone. And my sister were 2 years apart, me and her. My dad and my mom, they was always working. My mom leaving at 7 a.m. and coming back at 10 p.m. My dad, you know, jumping job to job. It was hard for us at the beginning. I had a lot of difficulties with teachers, and I was mostly like a troubled child, like us, because there's a lot of teachers in Sec 1, Sec 2, Sec 3, they're all looking at me like bad because I was making trouble and all that, you know, like talking about toxic environment. And like I felt like a type of shame and a shame in myself. And like I was like, you know, I was like, what am I supposed to do? And I feel like in my 4th grade of high school, like I really saw a perspective of school that I never really saw, you know. In Sec 4, I had a wonderful teacher, history teacher, wonderful. You know, she taught me a lot, you know. She taught me like, there's some teachers that's not gonna accept you for who you are actually, you know. Like, I can't judge teachers. I'll always respect my teachers, you know? I always respect my teachers, even though we don't see eye to eye. I feel like teachers are doing, like, an okay job, a good job, you know? Because, in a way, they're helping to build the future of what we're going on.
Thank you. Dr. Stephen Shaw, your work is in educational psychology. And just hearing some folks, like Daniel identified, talked about, and others talked about having diagnoses in terms of learning difficulties and learning challenges. If I go back to the report at Bedford in particular, it was underlined in several parts of the report that teachers denied those learning difficulties as real, and sadly would call those students lazy and also denied resources to those students in the school. What happens? I mean, so far we're hearing pretty positive outcomes for these young people, but what happens in general for a student's learning if some of these learning difficulties are not addressed and not supported?
Well, the outcomes are not very good, as we could say, because it's really not that different from having other aspects of identity being ignored or minimized. So yes, there's a technical part to this, there's no question. Getting good resources, appropriate instruction, that's true. But actually what I'm kind of finding over the many years of doing this, and this is my second career as an academic. Now, before that, I was a psychologist in schools for 16 years. And so what we found is the best predictor of success, despite having learning problems and having a diagnosis, is exactly what Daniel was talking about. A teacher, sometimes it's just one, who recognizes that person and builds them up. I was always looking for the technical parts. What about the curriculum and the text? No, it was the relationship of a teacher was the #1 component. And we see not only was that with academic skills, but also with mental health skills too. They're less likely if they just have one teacher who they have a relationship with. And the second best predictor actually was the parents felt that a teacher cared about their child. The bigger picture is that communities need to be lined up with their schools. And if they're not, if they're not lined up, the same goals, they don't have to be the same ethnic group makeup or the same religion, but they have to have the same goals and the same values. And when you see that deviance of the school different from the community, different from the Ministry of Education, that's really tough on kids.
We'll move the conversation towards teacher and teacher training, because that's come up a lot, and we have some folks in the room who are teachers who could probably weigh in. Melissa Edwards, who is a new teacher
So I just listening to all of this is a bit like frustrating. Just hearing like teachers presenting themselves in a disconfirming way. I recently graduated from McGill University. I am major in history, ethics and religious culture, now CCQ. And teaching is not a very easy job, I should say. But one of the things that our responsibility as a teacher is to create a safe learning environment for all our students, regardless to whether you're Black or white or Arab. We are not supposed to be looking at culture. We're supposed to be embracing the culture and to create that safe classroom climate for our students. Just listening to all of this, I just want to advise parents and community workers or like different clienteles here is that I think like knowing the Education Act is very important because it outlines the role of a teacher, the role of a parent, the responsibility of the parent, the responsibility of the school, and as well for the students. So it's like knowing the Education Act, you can always use it against the school, I should say. It's a very powerful tool. So you just use it against like, look at the elements that talk about like bullying and the school responsibility and what they should do in terms of if you're experiencing any sort of bullying in school.
It's making me think of a question that we have coming up around how we communicate with parents, because the Ministry of Education also made it clear to us at CBC in a statement that given the opportunity to communicate with parents in a language other than French and English, would they consider that, particularly in these instances right now where there are tensions and there are challenges? And the answer was no. They pointed to wanting parents and guardians to learn French, and this would be an opportunity for them to learn French. So when you think of the Education Act, that might be a barrier as well, even trying to learn it. I just want to pull in Christian, because you're also a teacher, and Melissa mentioned as teachers, you're trained to create a safe space, and I'm very curious about the training component. How do you feel that's reflected back to you? Is that something that's drilled down, let's say, as you're learning to be a teacher? Remember, you're making a safe space. Remember, you're not supposed to show favoritism. Remember, you're not supposed to treat genders differently, et cetera, et cetera.
En termes de formation enseignement au Québec, moi j'ai gradué à l'UDM. Honnêtement, pour ce qui est de créer un safe space, de créer un espace pour les jeunes, le meilleur enseignement, je ne l'ai pas appris à l'école. I don't think they teach it. Ils vont l'enseigner dans le livre, mais quand tu arrives sur le terrain, c'est pas du tout la même chose. Ça n'a pas rapport. Je pense qu'on a un problème qui est particulièrement wicked avec le système d'éducation au Québec. Je pense qu'on est dans le champ. Je pense pas qu'on est en train de faire la bonne chose. Je pense pas qu'on éduque les enseignants à être des bons enseignants. Mais c'est à force justement de voir, de me faire enseigner par des profs d'université qui n'ont jamais enseigné au secondaire comment enseigner en classe. Puis après, faire mes stages, voir qu'est-ce qui fonctionne pas, puis tout ça que j'ai appris sur le tas. Puis après, c'est vraiment de prendre de soi, de prendre de l'expérience, d'apprendre avec les élèves. Pour après, elevate, puis ramener ça au niveau que tu veux, mais c'est très personnel parce que le gouvernement a son agenda, le système d'éducation a son agenda. Tu as les cliques de teachers, parce que tantôt on en a parlé, puis c'est vrai qu'il y a des groupes de teachers qui sont très, très, très toxiques, puis sont très dans leur game. Il y a du power tripping. L'élève qui s'est fait bully quand il était au secondaire, il est rendu le prof qui bully les autres. C'est vraiment spécial, la dynamique, mais c'est vraiment... je pense que les teachers, on est supposé être des healers, puis c'est vraiment juste cette base-là. Si on est vraiment dans la vocation, puis le fait que ton premier rôle, c'est de heal, tu peux pas enseigner à des élèves qui sont tristes, tu peux pas enseigner à des élèves qui sont brisés. So you can only teach if you're healed, so you can heal them, et après, le teaching va arriver. Et I think right now that too much like adults that teach are simply sad, and students won't listen to sad people.
Hi, my name is Sarana, and I'm a formal student of one of the school that's involved. And I just want to say that, for someone who wasn't born here, and then I was put into a school, there was this sense of alienation, because it's okay, I have to figure out everything by myself. And it's not like I can ask my parents or my mom to help me because they're also figuring out the whole system too. So then sometimes, you get to adapt, and if you don't, then you're marked as a troublemaker. And I feel like that sticks with you, siblings or just like students who are just trying to figure out what's going on. And I feel like they're just marked as such. Yeah.
Sarana, do you get a sense of how your parents dealt with navigating the school system while you were in school?
Wow, yes. My mom fought for me. She fought for me. She didn't understand the language. And of course, I was the person who had to explain everything when I myself needed to, I didn't really understand either. So then there's always this mix of translation and not really understanding what's going on. But I think my mom, yes, she really did everything possible to try to figure it out, honestly, yeah.
There's actually one incident in fifth grade that teachers parents conference. My parents, for the first time, they actually went to a conference. Because sixth grade is when you go to high school. And they want to know the opinion about me going, if I have the level to go to high school. And they actually got disrespected because they didn't speak the language, actually.
Your parents were disrespected by the teacher?
In a way, because they were shy. It's the first time they went out of their comfort zone to speak out about their children, in a way, And after that, for my whole high school, they didn't went to a single parent-teacher conference,
Hi, I'm Tamar Anne Duverger from Baobab Familial. I'm the child educator, so I technically work with the 0 to 5-year-olds. I'm also a mom of a 12-year-old. And two things I would say kind of popped out. The first one was the parents felt so bad for all the comments that the kids used to tell their parents about what was going on at school. And because parents are so respectful of the role of the teachers, of what they represent, they were kind of pushing it away to a point where some of the parents did go to the offices, try to write emails, because I do say tried because it's not their first language, French. And it's not easy to express yourself when it's not your first language, to tell exactly what your child told you and to have at least the minimum, the adult's version. So the parents felt so guilty about that because they felt like they didn't do their role as a parent. And the second thing was, especially for my parents that are Muslim from different countries, well, now they were all saying, well, the spotlight is on us. So whatever we do, it's going to go against us, because now they don't see just the kids. They don't just see the human being. They see how we're dressed, how we are, how we behave. They don't see the human behind it. So those are the two big facts that came out when the reports came,
the news reports and the information started to circulate. We got Veronica from Kapwa who wanted to jump in.
Mabuhay, everyone. My name is Veronica. I'm one of the founders of South Kapwa, a nonprofit organization for the well-being and mental health of Filipinx youth. A lot of us have roots here in Côte d'Ivoire. I grew up here in Côte d'Ivoire. I have my preferred tree here in this park as well. And I wanted to jump in with you saying that the change needs to start from bottom up. And I actually want to push that and say that the change needs to come from deep within. I hope that we're not going to be in the same place 5-10 years, but if not, we will be here to advocate for the children, honing their confidence, the one that has already been damaged. Because when they were younger in our school systems, they told their parents, Mommy, Daddy, this person did this to me, or this teacher did this to me, and they were not heard. Or maybe their parents went and complained officially or unofficially, and nothing has been done. You mentioned, sir, that it takes a lot of time and energy. And unfortunately, as an immigrant, I am the de facto translator for my mom. it's hard to express yourself in a language that t'as pas la maîtrise.
You don't
know?
master that language, so it's hard to express it.
And
It's
so,
also what Tammy was saying.
to be in offices in École Secondaire Saint-Luc, so that's where I went to school with, to try and speak for my mom. And mind you, my mom did take 2 years to learn French, so she followed that parcours, not 6 months. That's impossible. And nothing has been done. So I can, as a future parent myself, as someone who's changed diapers of my friends' children, I have a justified anger. And also the mere fact that this has been ongoing with the experiences of youth and they feel lost. Frankly, I wanted to ask what are the other practices of educators and future educators are doing, because our community is just becoming beautiful, rich, and diverse. But as an immigrant, we need to understand that certain parents and some parents do not have the time to be involved in their children's education. And that creates kind of shame that, my God, I wasn't there for my baby's growth, that I tried to follow up, but I couldn't. That creates a lot of shame. And when I reach out to my community and ask, do you want to come with me and talk about the experiences of your daughter? Or like, can I speak to your daughter? Like, I'll remain confidential. They just want none of it because of the trauma and because of the, as an immigrant, when we talked about well-being and mental health, just pray it. That's also good, pray, but also we need an actual, sensitive, culturally sensitive programming that they can talk about it. The mere fact that their children are coming home being bullied, and they can't take up spaces. So I think we also have a responsibility for people behind the scenes whom their voices and their faces were not hearing.
Hi, my name is Ayana. I'm the chair of the board of directors of the Côte-de-Neige Black Community Association. And today's hats are many. One is as a parent, and if I can speak very frankly, I'm a mother of 3. My youngest is 16, graduating from high school this year. And I've been in the French and English system of them going to school. And I've been the chair of governing boards. And when we talk about bottom-up for parents, in the English school system, it is very easy to be part of a governing board. Parents are welcomed, teachers are happy to have you there. They want parents to be involved in the day-to-day. But on the French system, I sat on those governing boards. They don't want to hear anything from you. They follow the letter of the law as far as their union bills go. They follow everything as instructed, and they want to do what they have to do. We were able to go in and help families that had parent-teacher interview. We just sat in front. I remember we did that for 3 hours. We just sat, and families came in, and do you need help to translate for your parent-teacher interview? And they're like, why? Just if you want to. And so there is a fearfulness from parents in general about other people infiltrating this kind of school system that's considered to be, pristine. But at the same time, it's the responsibility of the government or the MELS or whatever it's called now to allow community to take the space that they cannot fulfill and recognize that more than just saying, parents need to speak French and all that. We understand that. Not to mention there's no French classes for them to take. But if you can offer the services, let someone else offer the services and give them the respect and the space that they deserve.
Hi, everyone. My name is Adama Kaba. I have many hats, but I guess I'm a parent. I also work a lot in community with families who are experiencing different forms of discrimination within schools. As somebody who's Francophone, even though initially I thought language was a big part, I realized that language isn't. I organized French classes in the school so that it's easy for parents who wanted to take classes. They were free, and a lot of people were interested, and they came. But before that, I had to write invitation for the parents. And I was told I couldn't write my letter in English, which was, for the schools that I was working in, the kind of compromise. It wasn't even the first language for parents, but it was the language that most parents understood. And I was told, you cannot write your letter in English. And I said, but this is for a French course. Oh, well, everybody understands time and date. And I said, okay, you want to play this game? We're going to play this game. So I wrote and I played with font. I wrote in English and I put the font for French super big, and I was really trying to be a troublemaker, but the font was really big for the French, and I'm like, look, French is still important. And then the principal actually nicknamed me the little devil because of that. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is the lengths that I have to go through just because I want to invite parents to learn French. Besides that, as a Francophone parent myself, I've encountered the same kinds of challenges that these parents were going through. So even if you know how to communicate, at the end of the day, if the staff members or the teacher that you have there thinks you have nothing to bring and you actually have to just follow whatever they're saying, it becomes really hard to build that relationship, because as a parent, you come with knowledge, you come with experience, you know your children, and you have to be able to collaborate with the staff in order to provide the best, I think, education to your children. And I didn't feel in my experience that that was happening. So I just want us to also, because I hear this a lot, I'm in a lot of conversations in Quebec about the education system, and I think we kind of indirectly blame ourselves a lot, but this room, I think, is a testament to all the strength that exists in the community. How many people here are saying, if it wasn't for community organizations, families, my parents advocated for me, I wouldn't make it. So I just want us to also acknowledge that, and there's a lot that's being done that's like formally and informally, things that don't make it to research reports, but they are happening.
I've had experiences where I was at the SAS, which is an école adaptée à ta situation, which all the kids that get kicked out of school get shipped to those schools. And I had some beautiful success stories with those youths that they say that are criminalized just because the school let me go in and do what I do best and mediate and talk sometimes to a kid that they're thinking about shipping out. So stories of success where they let us come in and execute our magic with those youths, and sometimes add on with our emotional knowledge that we have of being able to manage a youth in the moment that feels like he needs that extra substance. It's not enough. He has post-traumatic stress because he's coming from a country where there's war. He's not in a space to come and sit down and learn about school. And let's not even talk about how we're all affected socially by everything that we see. And that something that has a high potency socially will affect our youth because they talk about it at home, they talk about it outside, they get to the class, they're thinking about it, their teachers interacting with them based on what they've heard about these people. So we're constantly in that, we don't know how to act with each other, as much for an adult as a youth. Mm-hmm. It affects the youth more visibly, but it affects the teacher as much.
Alex, you might be the only former principal in the room, but we've just heard from different community organizers saying there's a challenge with getting external bodies into the schools to support. How challenging is it as an administrator to open your school doors to the people outside of the immediate school room?
Well, I can speak as a principal myself, but I think we need to speak to the larger school system. First of all, Doctor, just to say that in 1970, the Protestant School Board had a multiculturalism policy, which actually gave rise to the Quebec Board of Black Educators as communities getting involved into schools. Until Bill 101, where most immigrants now were compelled to go to French schools, the English school system has a longer experience in dealing with CLC schools, which is community learning centers. They've realized that, as you say, Doctor, that if schools are aligned with the community, then you have better outcomes. Unfortunately, schools are very guarded, and I appreciate all of the interventions that I've heard because they're all community-based. You're all social workers, people that are working on the periphery of the school system. I've been a teacher, I've been a basketball coach, I've been a principal. Now I'm a head of a community organization. So I've lived many times when parents have to go into schools, I ask them, You know what you do? Send an email to the principal, tell them that your child is working with the Quebec Board of Black Educators, and I, as a former principal, will go into the schools with you and deal. And I was able to have small sense of success. Why? Because I understand the landscape. I know how to navigate. There are certain rules that people don't know. Look, I come from a family of educators. My youngest daughter in Sec 4 was getting 100% in math, and to prove they still wouldn't allow her to take a applied science. I'm a physics teacher. Physics and math, yet today she's becoming a doctor in spite of. And this is the resilience of our community. We do, but what is the school system? How do we hold the school system affordable? It's a lot easier in the English school system because they still have elected officials.
So my name's Bronwyn Lowe. I have been working in teacher education with Ratna Ghosh and a few other colleagues here at McGill for 20 years. And reading the report was really difficult. It is, for those of you who've waded through it, it is unbelievably depressing because it speaks to me of massive system failure. And the victims are the children and their families. And to hear that the families had been speaking up, trying to make contact, that other teachers had spoken to problems about the school and were moved along, that efforts were changed, new administration was brought in, and yet it was all entirely ineffective, speaks to, just a system-level failure that is, for someone who works within the system, makes me feel implicated, responsible. Like, why are we not able to do a better job at educating children? One of the things that was so striking is how everything happening in those classrooms goes against everything we know about teaching and learning. It's like 100 years of research and practice on building culturally responsive and sustaining pedagogies, on student-centered learning, on schools as community hubs, on assessment practices for learning rather than humiliation and sorting children, on learning differences and neurodiversity. Like, all of that was put aside, it seemed, and there was no way to rectify the situation. But one of my deep concerns is that the ways in which the situation in that report are now being interpreted are like missing the point. The blame is being placed on the cultural and religious identity of the teachers, which was not the point. The problem is outdated pedagogies that were harming students were allowed to persist, that the Quebec curriculum was being ignored. And those are the issues. My other concern is not only now is our cultural and religion on the spotlight, deepening already, deep-seated prejudices, particularly against Muslim community members and teachers who are in very precarious positions, but also the problem is being seen as like a few bad apples. One of our participants at the beginning mentioned a kind of witch hunt that she's seeing, like, oh yeah, this is happening elsewhere. But what is not being put under the spotlight is the system more generally, which has allowed this to happen not only in this one school, but as we're hearing from so many people here, generation after generation of young people are being disciplined in ways that are humiliating, are not having their full personhood valued and drawn upon as a resource for teaching and learning. And so, yeah, it was really depressing, and I don't know. I don't know where to go from there.
I wanted to actually underline a couple of things, and I hope we can be really, as we are being quite honest about everything, and thinking of the folks who might be listening to our future broadcasts of parts of this conversation, thinking of my own experience growing up in a family coming from the Caribbean, and me being a first-generation Canadian. And many of us in the room, I would gather, had these kinds of moments where even our parents thought that their experience with education where they came from was better than what we were experiencing. Many a time, my grammar was corrected by my mother after the teacher corrected it. Many a time, I saw a different math equation than what I was learning to better learn math. Many a time, I've heard parents say, what is the problem with 30 kids in the class? We were 50 sitting on benches. So I'm curious to know in the room, how do we address some of that disconnect where we have so many people. Some people are coming as teachers themselves, and they aren't able to work in the system here, but just from families who are kind of resistant to the curriculum, resistant to the X number of years of research that say XYZ, resistant to the diagnoses around learning, resistant to even some of the course curriculum that we say is mandatory compulsory learning in Quebec. What are the ways? Do we have ideas on how to better address some of that reticence from the families and people in community? Oh, there's a hand in the back.
Sorry, I'm not that intellectual person. I can able to go to all your mind. Thank you very much for coming, all the parents. We appreciate your coming. I'm not here to talk about anybody else. We talk about ourselves. Ourselves that we immigrant in this country, thinking we can do better for our children, but we're not doing enough. Why? We're having a problem with immigration. We're having a problem with the law of the country, which is we never attended in our country. We came here, it's a new country to us. We're hustling our kids. The landlord is hustling us. Nobody was there to protect you. The school is hustling you. You can't protect yourself. You walk in the schoolroom. The program is too much. They give one kid 8 courses, 8 programs on one person. The teacher, you walk in this classroom, the kids have 45 kids. One teacher was dealing with all of them. We don't have to blame the teachers. We have to blame the politicians. Politicians are nicking down on us. They're laughing at us. Oh, you're immigrant. They're sending their kids expensive school, and they leave us hanging in. They leave us hanging in. I've been coaching the kids. No pay. We're blaming the teachers. We're blaming ourselves by sitting down. You're welcome for all the parents that came here. We appreciate it, but we have to educate ourselves. Government is taking our advantage. We have to have something to hold the government.
Hi, everyone. My name's Rosetta. I do a lot of things. I am a mom. I have a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old, so I'll start with that. I developed a trauma awareness program in 2020 at the community level, and that's where I started facilitating it. I later expanded into the education sector, so elementaries and high schools in the EMSB. I think to date, probably over 700 EMSB employees have been trained. The main objective of this program is to speak to all of the things that you just said, which is relationships. So it creates essentially a cultural shift at an organizational level, so the board level, in collaborating at the board level, like developing a partnership, and then recognizing the needs of the students, so from the bottom up, and going in to facilitate this program for the teachers in the context of training, so awareness, what is trauma, the human experience, and also to meet the needs when there's a situational crisis in the school. So I've done it in the context of both crisis intervention and training. I think the major things, there's so much that I could say about the program, but the major things that have come out of it is the fact that teachers really need to have mental health training. And so they have said over and over again that they're not supposed to intervene and they're not supposed to address the mental health needs of their students, but they do automatically because students disclose. And so they have to be able to handle that in a safe way, not only for the student, but for themselves. So one of the major impacts is that the program addresses the mental health needs of the staff at the same time. So happy teachers, I know I heard that.
Christian was saying that, yeah.
Happy teachers. So it addresses the mental health needs of the staff, and then thereby extending to the relationship that they have with the students, helping teachers to see students through a lens of what has happened to you versus what is wrong with you. If we're in a state of reactivity, how can teachers intervene in that situation without further escalating and further triggering the student? Teachers trigger students, students trigger teachers, their vicarious trauma keeps mounting. And so to speak to why there's not enough staff, there's not enough professionals in the field, it's because of burnout. If there is a mental health component included where teachers can understand behavior in the context of mental health and needs that are constantly escalating and elevating over the last couple years, they will feel more equipped to intervene.
One of the things I spoke about earlier was that what was happening in that report, what was documented, goes against everything we know about teaching and learning. And folks like a number of us here working in the university with teachers in education need to do more to bridge the gap between what people learn in their classes and what they experience in schools. And one of the things that looks like is sustained long-term research collaborations where to bridge that divide between schools and university. And the second thing is that we need to value teachers more. I'm finding, and we've been speaking about burnout rates and turnover. I mean, teaching is such an important job, and it's super difficult, and it's easy to be frustrated with what we see, but it's becoming a very socially devalued position, and that affects people's self-esteem, their working conditions, and what they bring to students. And so I've had, in my teacher education classes, just last week, students telling me they were top students in their high schools, and when their teachers found out they were going into education, they were really disappointed, and they're like, why are you doing that? And these same students going into their placements in schools, because they go from the university, and the teachers in the schools saying, this is a terrible job, why are you going into teaching? And so if this is happening and they're just starting, they're not even teachers yet, this demoralization, this social denigration, I mean, that we have to switch that and value teachers for the crucial people they are in the lives of our children, given that our kids spend more time with them than they do with us over the course of their lives.
Solution, Alex Adrien.
Well, first, it's important for us to make sure that we don't only see the problem as one-sided. As an administrator and as a teacher, I can tell you many of the problems come with the families as well. And understanding, having that conversation, a lot of time parents would come in and tell me, well, Mr. Adrian, and I said, okay, well, let me let you my perspective. We need to understand also sometimes in the conversation that we need to see, yes, the system has its failings. Yes, the system doesn't have enough accountability and checks and balance within it. But I think there's a dialogue to I had a wonderful career as an educator, and I am baffled when people are saying, like, why would you want to go into education? We need to do a better job to help our teachers, to find the resources. And to Dr. Shaw's point, that's where I think situations are when schools are close to a communities and with families, then we can begin to have that dialogue and hopefully diminish some of the sort of the isolation and thing that we have in the schools.
We talked a lot about teacher solutions. We've talked a bit about family solutions as well. We've talked about solutions within community. We even reference politicians, which means we are talking about civic responsibility and how to get people engaged with civics. But what about the very maybe dense tier of people who go between the teachers and the ministry? Like, what about that group there of administrators and fonctionnaires who are in the school boards or in the centre de service now? Are there any solutions with regards to that structure? Christian?
Je pense que c'est pour ces gens-là, ça serait de changer la vision un peu de l'éducation, c'est quoi qu'on veut. Parce que je crois que présentement, un des plus gros problèmes, c'est qu'on ne sait pas c'est quoi un bon élève. Like we don't know. Parce que de tantôt, on a parlé de son exemple de son fils, tantôt qu'il a de la douance, mais il est actif. On parle de son comportement, mais c'est peut-être le meilleur élève de la classe, mais c'est son comportement qui est le problème. Donc, je pense que présentement, on encourage un comportement qui est plus soumissif. Just to, like, change the vision of what we want.
Is money a part of the solution? Do teachers need to be better paid?
C'est pas le salaire le problème, c'est plus aussi comme Bronwyn a dit tantôt, c'est comment les gens, la perception de l'enseignement est vraiment négative. Like, je suis enseignant au secondaire. Oh, you're courageous. How do you do with kids? Are you not afraid? Like, yo! C'est vraiment ça le problème.
So what you're saying is that really, in your experience, it's not about a salary. It's really about how we think and treat this profession and how people learn to be in this profession.
Why I say that we need more feet on the ground, because who's going to make the correlation from the school all the way to home, all the way to that Maison des Jeunes, all the way to the neighborhood? There needs to be familiar faces for the parents and for the youth. We can have more people or give more money or tell the teachers they have to learn more, but when I hear this, it sounds like it's going to take another 20 years. You see what I'm saying? So the change is not going to happen. And I'm on the ground and I see it firsthand. Those youths that are quitting from school and that are stuck in a life of, however you want to say, illegalite, whatever, that are searching themselves through the wrong areas in those dark areas, need people to come through and be accessible, that have the knowledge that a sister got right here, that has the knowledge that a teacher or brother has right here, and that could give it to them on the go, and not waiting for them to come on the bench of schools to get that fed to them, that knowledge of life. It needs to be accessible. That's why I say it's a community thing. We need to work together way more, way more.
Can't end on better words than that. Thank you, Jean-Edouard, and thank you to everyone. Thank you to everyone who came out today for this conversation. Thank you very much for being here today.